I've always loved documentaries, so when a viral campaign hinted about a monster movie told Blair Witch style, it immediately had my attention. Although I promised myself that if I saw anything about scary piles of rocks or supposedly creepy stick figures, I would immediately walk out of the theater, track down the director, and paper cut them to death with my ticket stub. But thankfully, I guess, I didn't have to do that. At its core, Cloverfield is a rare, visceral experience in panic and terror. If a giant monster was tearing apart your city and murdering your friends, and you happen to capture it on tape, it would probably feel a lot like this movie. The roughness of the cinematography, the direction and angles the camera captures, and the scenes that are spliced together with supposedly random edits are all very much intentional and convey that the event is happening to you, rather than some catastrophe you just happen to be watching on CNN. After the group gets caught in the crossfire of the military bombarding the creature, you get your first, albeit brief, look at the monster's head. That wasn't by chance. Someone made that decision to have the camera pan that way, at that speed, at that time. That's what we're after, folks. Intentionality. Even though the movie presents itself that anything could happen, the truth is that the images shown aren't by chance. One thing I feel I have to briefly address is this outcry against the shakiness. I heard rumors that some people actually puked during the viewing of the movie and therefore didn't like it. I find that to be a rather strange argument. If you ride a roller coaster and after stepping off immediately yak, it's not the roller coaster's fault, it's yours. It's not the movie's fault you had the misfortune of being born with the stomach of a 90-pound girl out on her 21st birthday who can't handle more than 2 beers without doing the multicolored yawn all over your fucking car interior. Ugh. Anyway, back to intentionality. When you look at how characters die, it's not just death for death's sake. They die revealing something new about the monster and push the story forward. The guy that gets smashed on the bridge shows the creature's physical scale and raw power. The girl that blows up reveals the parasites and what happens when you're bit by one. And just a little side note, that part had me laughing with horrific delight when she popped like a bloody infected zit on a backlit canvas. The cameraman's death shows the creature's apparent need for some sort of alien-breathing lung, which sheds some light on its origin, as well as, and this is the part I relate with it the most, showing its general disgust for bad stand-up comedians. And as for the final surviving couple, they die showing the monster's invincibility, giving us a first-hand look at the desperation of our government bombing our most populated city and proving once and for all that while true love may exist, none of us want to watch anybody else experience it. As for the monster itself, I found its design unique and well executed. The way the thing walks, the way it howls, all remind me of something terrifying I couldn't quite put my finger on but was scared of nevertheless. Even though I didn't love the human characters, I did want them to survive. I loved hating this monster and was ready to see some, if any, victory over it. I'm the type of guy that cheers for villains, but in this instance, I grimaced with every torn down building and taken life, with the exception of the aforementioned exploding brunette pimple. I can't really remember the last time I hated a character because it was doing its job right and not because it was annoying. It's a rare thing, and again, something by design and not chance. And the parasites, they didn't wow me as much because I'd seen them before in Final Fantasy X, but their moment in the subway was pretty fun, regardless of their origin. Now, despite the loads of praise I've been piling on, Cloverfield is not without its problems. The introduction to the characters takes longer than the intro to a Death Cab for Cuties single, and is even less interesting. The problem with trying to make dialogue that feels real is that, well, people are dumb, and discussions that take place in reality typically aren't the most eloquent or well-constructed. You ever listen to how and what people talk about in a public space? It makes me want to push them off the edge of a cliff so I can hear the satisfying sound of their body break when they hit the jagged rocks below. The actors try their best to make you care about them, but once the movie gets going, you know they're just pieces of meat there to be gobbled up or crushed by something. There's also a truly ridiculous example of deadly wounds that apparently aren't so deadly as long as you're running from something. The girl that's rescued and subsequently bombed at the end was impaled through her chest and then sat in a rotting and crumbling apartment for hours. Once she's been deskewered, she's ready to run and scream with the rest of the gang. It's not uncommon for people in movies to have a high resilience for pain or injuries, but for a movie like this, a movie whose foundation is based on reality, it just felt unbelievable. Strange as this may sound, I bought the 300-foot creature ripping off the Statue of Liberty's head and throwing it down the street, but a girl getting impaled and walking around, that's just crazy. That and our government's quick response time to a disaster. But yeah, Cloverfield was worth watching, even if you missed it in the theater. I enjoyed it from middle to finish, and having watched it in the theater and at home, I can say that I'm still a fan of its dizzying style and terrifying action. I do wish it had been longer, though. Although on second thought, if it had been longer, there would be the risk of having the monster make friends with a pretty blonde, finding out that it's a misunderstood beast with a heart of gold, and end up skating on a lake with said blonde and Sleeve and I wanted to... the hell with it. You know where I'm going with this. That part in King Kong, that was fucking stupid.